Three men pinned Jackie Chan against the wall of a narrow Hong Kong corridor, one of them pressing a metal pipe against his kneecap while demanding he walk away from the final. Jackie didn't flinch. He looked the leader dead in the eyes, smiled, and did something no one in that hallway expected. What happened in the next 48 hours would become Hong Kong legend, a story whispered about for decades. What happened in the next 72 hours would become Hong Kong legend, a story whispered about for decades in every film studio, every back-alley noodle shop, and every VIP room where men with power talked about the one guy who refused to bend. Let me take you back. It's 1985. Jackie Chan is on fire. Not Hollywood fire, Hong Kong fire. Which means every single person on the street knows his face. He's coming off Police Story, the movie that almost killed him, literally, when he slid down that pole through the glass and electricity and landed in a pile of his own ambition. The box office numbers were insane, and when box office numbers get insane in Hong Kong in the 80s, certain people start paying attention, the wrong people. Now I need you to understand something about the Hong Kong film industry at that time. The triads didn't just lurk around the edges, they were in the bloodstream. They financed films, they owned theaters, they had actors under contract, not the legal kind, the kind where you sign with your safety. Directors, producers, stunt coordinators, some of them answered to triad bosses before they answered to any studio. That was the ecosystem. You either played along or you disappeared from the business. Sometimes you disappeared from the city. Sometimes you just disappeared. Jackie didn't play along. Believe me, that sounds simple. It wasn't, because saying no to these guys wasn't some heroic speech you give at a podium. It was a Tuesday night phone call where a calm voice tells you they've decided you're making their next movie, and your options are yes or hospital. The man in the parking garage, the one with the silk suit, his name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is who he worked for. He was a lieutenant for one of the most powerful triad organizations operating in Kowloon at the time, and his boss, a man people only referred to by a single syllable because using his full name out loud felt dangerous, had decided that Jackie Chan was going to star in his next production. Not a request, a decree. Jackie had already turned it down twice. The first time was polite, a meeting at a restaurant, tea, dim sum, everything civilized. Jackie's manager, Willie Chan, no relation, had taken the meeting on Jackie's behalf. Willie sat across from two men in expensive watches and explained that Jackie's schedule was full for the next 18 months. He had contractual obligations, nothing personal. The two men nodded, sipped their tea, and said they understood. They left. Willie thought it was handled. It was not handled. The second approach came 3 weeks later. This time they skipped the dim sum. Two different men showed up at the set of Jackie's next film, walked right past security because security in Hong Kong film sets wasn't exactly the Secret Service, and found Jackie between takes, still sweating from a fight sequence. One of them handed him a script. Jackie looked at it, looked at them, and said in Cantonese something close to, "I already said no, please respect that." The taller of the two men put his hand on Jackie's shoulder. Not a friendly hand, a hand that communicated weight. Jackie didn't flinch. He reached up, gently removed the hand, and walked back to set. Get this. Most people in that industry, when the second visit happens, they fold. They make the movie. They take whatever percentage they're offered, which is usually almost nothing, and they shut up about it. That's how it worked. Jackie Chan, 5'8", 160 pounds of trained muscle and bruised cartilage, told them no. Again. So they sent the lieutenant. The parking garage meeting wasn't a meeting, it was an ambush. Jackie had finished a late-night editing session and walked to his car alone. The lieutenant was leaning on the hood with two other men flanking him, arms crossed, faces blank. Jackie stopped walking. He assessed. His eyes went to the exits, two behind him, one to the left, all of them at least 40 feet away. He looked at the three men. The lieutenant pushed off the hood and closed the distance in 4 steps. "Mr. Chan, my boss is not a patient man." Jackie's jaw tightened. His feet shifted, a habit from decades of training, weight-centered, ready. "I've given my answer." The lieutenant nodded slowly. "Your answer is going to change. Tonight. Here's what nobody tells you about Jackie Chan. Everyone knows the comedy. Everyone knows the stunts, the chair fights, the ladder gags, the clock tower fall. What people forget is that this man trained in Peking opera from the age of 6. That's not acting school. That's a system where they beat technique into your bones until your body responds before your brain catches up. Jackie's hands weren't just fast, they were educated. Every knuckle had a doctorate in impact. But Jackie didn't want to fight. That's the part that matters. He could have. 3 guys, a confined space, Jackie Chan in his physical prime. You do the math. But Jackie understood something most tough guys never learn. Winning a fight with triad soldiers doesn't end the fight. It starts a war. So when the first punch came, Jackie tried to deflect it. He caught the fist, redirected it, stepped laterally. Classic response. But the second man moved at the same time, going low, sweeping Jackie's lead leg. Jackie lost his footing and went down hard. That's when the lieutenant kicked him in the ribs. 1 kick. Then the lieutenant crouched down, grabbed Jackie's jaw with one ringed hand and forced eye contact. You're making the movie, or we break both your legs. Not tonight, before your next premiere. Think about what that means for your career. Jackie's chest was on fire. He could taste copper in the back of his throat. But his eyes, and this is important, his eyes didn't look scared. They looked calculating. He was doing what he always did on set when a stunt went wrong. Recalibrating. He said nothing. The lieutenant released his jaw, stood up, straightened his suit, and walked away. The 2 men followed. Their footsteps faded into the concrete echo of the garage. Jackie stayed on the ground for a full minute. Not because he couldn't get up, because he was thinking. I swear this happened. What Jackie did next was so unexpected that even the people who loved him thought he'd lost his mind. He called a press conference. Not the next week, not after consulting lawyers. The very next day. He walked into a room full of reporters and cameras with a bruise on his ribcage hidden under his shirt, and he told them everything. He told them about the meetings. He told them about the script he was pressured to accept. He told them about the parking garage. He didn't name names because he wasn't suicidal, but he named the practice. He looked straight into the cameras and said, in a city where everyone whispered, I will not be controlled. I am not for sale. The room went quiet. Now you need to understand the size of that moment. In 1985, Hong Kong, publicly calling out triad involvement in the film industry was something nobody did. Not actors, not directors, not journalists. Everyone knew it was happening. Everyone participated in the polite fiction that it wasn't. Jackie Chan walked into that room and knocked down the 4th wall between the industry and the criminal underworld. And he did it on camera, where it couldn't be taken back. The reaction was immediate, and it was split. Half the industry privately cheered. These were the people who'd been making triad-financed garbage films under threat, who'd been losing percentages of their work to gangsters in tailored suits, who'd wanted to say something for years, but didn't have the platform or the guts. Jackie had both. The other half panicked. Producers who had triad partnerships called Jackie's manager screaming. Directors who owed favors warned that Jackie had just put a target on his back. Willie Chan, to his credit, held steady. He'd been with Jackie long enough to know that when Jackie committed to a direction, redirecting him was pointless. You simply held on and managed the fallout. The triad response took 48 hours. Pay attention to this part, because this is where it escalates beyond a film industry dispute and into something that could have ended Jackie Chan's career, his mobility, and possibly his life. The word came down from the boss, not the lieutenant, the boss himself. Jackie Chan was to be made an example. The specific instruction, according to people who were in the room and talked about it years later, was concise. Break his legs. Do it publicly enough that every actor in Hong Kong gets the message. Do it before the premiere of his next film, which was less than 2 weeks away. They weren't bluffing. This organization had crippled people before. A character actor in 1982 who refused a role ended up with both kneecaps shattered. A stunt coordinator who tried to unionize got his hands broken. These weren't rumors. These were case files that police quietly shelved because the witnesses always recanted. Jackie knew what was coming. His body knew before his mind fully accepted it. He started moving differently, looking over his shoulder at intersections, checking the back seat of his car before getting in. His training kicked in, that peaking opera survival wiring, the same instinct that let him jump off a building and calculate the landing mid-fall. He was assessing threat vectors the way he assessed stunt angles, constantly. But here's the thing. He didn't hide. This is what separates Jackie Chan from everybody else in this story. He didn't leave the country. He didn't go to Thailand to lay low. He didn't cancel the premiere. He kept working. He kept showing up to set. He kept rehearsing fight choreography with his stunt team. He lived his life in the open, fully aware that men had been dispatched to break his legs. You want to know why? Hang on, I'm getting there. 3 days after the press conference, Jackie showed up to a location shoot in the new territories. Rural area, minimal security, miles from the nearest police station. His stunt team was setting up a sequence involving a bus, a motorcycle, and a fruit cart because Jackie Chan movies always had a fruit cart. Jackie was stretching near the bus when a black Mercedes pulled up at the edge of the set. 2 men got out, not the same men from the parking garage. New faces, younger, harder. Jackie's stunt coordinator, a guy named Mars, spotted them first. Mars had been with Jackie since the early days. He knew the look. He walked over to Jackie and said quietly, "We've got company." Jackie stopped stretching. He stood up straight. He looked at the 2 men who were now walking toward him across the dirt road, and then Jackie Chan, in possibly the most audacious move of his life, started walking toward them. This is real. He didn't wait. He didn't retreat. He walked directly at 2 triad enforcers who were almost certainly there to deliver a final warning or a first beating. Mars and 2 other stunt guys fell in behind Jackie, not because Jackie asked them to, but because that's what his crew did. They were stuntmen. Every one of them could take a hit and throw one back. They weren't bodyguards, but they moved with that kind of energy. Jackie reached the 2 men in the middle of the dirt road. He stopped about 3 feet away, close enough to read the tattoos peeking out from their collars. He looked at the taller one and said, "I know why you're here. Tell your boss something for me. I will be at the premiere. I will walk the red carpet. If he wants to do what he's planning to do, he can do it in front of every camera in Hong Kong." The taller enforcer blinked. This was clearly not the script he'd been given. He glanced at his partner. His partner looked at the stunt team behind Jackie. 5 guys who collectively had more broken bones than a hospital ward, all standing with their weight forward, fists loose at their sides. The enforcer looked back at Jackie. "You're making a mistake." Jackie shrugged, not a dismissive shrug, a genuine one, an honest physical admission that he understood the risk. "Maybe, but I'm still going to be there." The 2 men stood for another 5 seconds. Then they turned around, got back in the Mercedes, and drove away. Now listen carefully. That confrontation didn't solve anything. Jackie knew it. The threat was still active. The boss hadn't called off the order. All Jackie had done was dare them to do it in public, which was either brilliant or insane, depending on your perspective. Here's the part of the story most people don't know. After the enforcers left, Jackie sat down on the bumper of the bus. Mars sat next to him. The rest of the crew gave them space. Jackie was quiet for about 30 seconds, which for Jackie Chan was an eternity because the man usually talked non-stop. Then he said something that Mars repeated in an interview 2 decades later. "I'm scared. I've always been scared. Every stunt, every jump, every time I climb something I shouldn't climb. The fear never goes away. I just learned to move while I'm afraid." Mars didn't say anything. He just nodded. And then Jackie slapped his own knees, stood up and said, "Okay, let's blow up the fruit cart." They shot for 12 more hours. Trust me on this. The next week was the most dangerous 7 days of Jackie Chan's life, and this is a man who once hung from a helicopter by his fingernails and jumped onto a moving hovercraft. The physical danger of his stunts was voluntary. This was involuntary. This was waking up every morning knowing that trained criminals had been authorized to destroy his ability to walk. But something was happening behind the scenes that Jackie didn't fully see yet. His press conference had started a chain reaction. Other actors quietly at first began talking, not publicly, not on camera, but in meetings with producers and studio heads. The message was, if Jackie Chan gets hurt for speaking up, we all walk. Not some of us, all of us. This wasn't altruism, it was math. If the triads could take down the biggest star in Asia for refusing a role, nobody was safe. The smaller actors, the character players, the stunt performers who made a fraction of Jackie's money, they were all exponentially more vulnerable. Jackie's stand wasn't just about Jackie. It was a line in the sand for the entire industry. The studios felt the pressure, and the studios, for all their dysfunction, understood something the triads sometimes forgot. The film industry was a cash machine. It generated enormous revenue. Revenue that flowed into triad accounts through financing, distribution, and theater ownership. If the actors walked, the machine stopped. And if the machine stopped, a lot of powerful people lost a lot of money. Word of the actor solidarity reached the triad boss through intermediaries. And this is where a moment of unexpected calculation occurred. The boss, this man who operated through fear and enforcement, who had ordered legs broken the way you'd order lunch, did something nobody predicted. He asked for a meeting, not with Jackie, with Willie Chan. The meeting happened at a private club in Central. Willie walked in alone, sat across from a man he'd spent years carefully avoiding, and waited. The boss was in his 60s, small, thin, unremarkable looking, the way truly dangerous people often are. He poured Willie tea with his own hands, which in that context was either a gesture of respect or a performance of control. Probably both. Your boy has courage, the boss said. Willie didn't touch his tea. He has principles. Principles are expensive. So is a shutdown. The boss picked up his own cup, sipped, set it down with precision. And then he said something that Willie Chan never expected to hear from a man who trafficked in violence and coercion. I had a son who wanted to be an actor. Did you know that? Willie shook his head. He was terrible, no talent, no discipline, but he loved the movies. Every Saturday, he'd go to the cinema and come back doing kung fu in the living room, knocking over furniture. The boss paused. He died, car accident, 22 years old. Willie sat still. I got into the film business because of him, because he loved it. Somewhere along the way it became just another operation, another revenue stream. I forgot why I started. Now hear me out, I'm not romanticizing this man. He was a criminal. He'd ordered violence against dozens of people. He ran operations that destroyed lives. But in that moment, sitting across from Willie Chan, something cracked open. Not redemption, not transformation. Just a fracture in the armor, a 2-minute window where a dangerous man remembered he was also a father who lost a son. The boss set his teacup down. Tell Jackie Chan he won't be touched. Not at the premiere, not after. The order is withdrawn. Willie exhaled for what felt like the first time in 2 weeks. But tell him something else, the boss added. Tell him I respect what he did, and tell him never to do it again. Willie stood, nodded once, and left the club. He called Jackie from a payphone on the street. Jackie picked up on the first ring. Willie told him it was over. Jackie was quiet for a moment. Then he said 2 words. Thank you. But here's where the story gets its final twist. Because Jackie Chan wasn't done, not even close. The premiere was 5 days away. The threat had been lifted. Jackie could have walked that red carpet with relief, done his press interviews, smiled for the cameras, and moved on with his life. The smart play was to let the dust settle, let the triad boss save face, let the industry quietly return to its uneasy equilibrium. Jackie didn't make the smart play. He made the Jackie Chan play. In the 5 days before the premiere, Jackie met with a group of actors, directors, and producers. Not the powerful ones, the small ones. The ones who had no protection, no leverage, no manager with the connections of Willie Chan. He met them at a rented office space in Mongkok, 23 people in plastic chairs, and he told them they were going to form an association, a collective, a group that would stand between the creative talent and the criminal organizations that preyed on them. Not that one sentence, not a speech. He said something close to, nobody should have to make a movie with a gun to their head. If we stand together, they can't pick us off one by one. This was the birth of what would eventually contribute to significant industry reform in Hong Kong cinema. It didn't happen overnight. It took years, decades really. The triads didn't vanish from the film business in 1985, but Jackie Chan put the first crack in the foundation, and cracks spread. Now let me tell you about the premiere itself, because this is where the legend earns its name. The night of the premiere, every major figure in Hong Kong entertainment showed up. Actors, singers, directors, executives, politicians. The press was there in force because Jackie's press conference had turned this premiere into the most anticipated event of the year. Everyone wanted to see if Jackie Chan would actually show up. Everyone wanted to see what would happen if he did. He showed up. Jackie arrived in a simple black suit, no entourage beyond Willie and Mars. No visible security detail, though plainclothes officers were positioned throughout the venue, a development that had been quietly arranged through back channels. Jackie stepped out of the car, looked at the wall of cameras and reporters, and did something so characteristically Jackie Chan that it almost diffused 2 weeks of terror in a single gesture. He did a backflip on the red carpet. Not a metaphorical one, a literal standing backflip, in dress shoes on a red carpet, in front of 300 people and 50 cameras. He landed it clean, straightened his jacket, and grinned. The crowd erupted. Not polite applause. A roar. Because everyone there knew what this man had been through. Everyone knew the threat. Everyone knew he'd been told his legs would be broken. And here he was, using those same legs to do a backflip as if gravity and gangsters were equally irrelevant to his plans. This is my favorite part. As Jackie walked the red carpet, shaking hands and mugging for photographers, he passed a cluster of men standing near the entrance, well-dressed, impassive. The lieutenant from the parking garage was among them. He'd been sent, not to enforce, but to observe. The boss wanted eyes at the premiere. Jackie saw him. The lieutenant saw Jackie. For a moment they locked eyes across 10 feet of red carpet and flashbulbs. Jackie's expression didn't change. He didn't glare. He didn't smirk. He simply gave the man a small nod. A nod that said, "I was here. I said I'd be here. And here I am." The lieutenant nodded back. Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Inside the theater the film played. The audience loved it. Jackie's fights, his comedy, his willingness to throw his body at every surface in the frame. When the lights came up, the applause lasted over 3 minutes. Jackie stood at the front of the theater, bruised ribs still tender under his suit, and he took a bow. A reporter in the front row shouted a question. "Jackie, are you worried about the future, about repercussions?" Jackie straightened up from his bow. He looked at the reporter. He looked at the audience. His expression was calm, settled, the face of a man who'd run the math on fear and decided the numbers didn't add up. "I do my own stunts," he said. 7 words. Under 15. And nobody in that theater needed an explanation. Now, if you've made it this far in this story, you already know this channel deals in real ones. People who stood up when sitting down was safer. People who chose the hard road because the easy road cost too much of who they were. If that's the kind of content that grabs you, hit subscribe right now. Because we're just getting started. Let me close this out properly. The aftermath of Jackie Chan's stand against the triads didn't produce a neat Hollywood ending. The triads didn't dissolve. The film industry didn't become a corruption-free paradise overnight. Jackie himself would face other pressures over the years, other attempts by criminal organizations to leverage his fame. But something fundamental shifted after that premiere in 1985. The Actors Association that Jackie helped organize grew. It became a real entity with real influence. Studio contracts started including provisions that had never existed before. Actors who were pressured by outside interests had a number to call, a group that would mobilize on their behalf. It was imperfect. It was slow, but it was built on the foundation of one man who walked toward danger instead of away from it. Jackie Chan went on to become the most recognized action star on the planet. Hollywood eventually came calling, and he conquered that too. But the people who knew him best, the Hong Kong crews, the stunt teams, the actors who'd been in those plastic chairs in Mongkok, they always said the same thing. The bravest thing Jackie Chan ever did wasn't jumping off a clock tower. It wasn't sliding down a pole through electrified glass. It wasn't hanging from a helicopter. The bravest thing Jackie Chan ever did was stand in a parking garage with cracked ribs and decide that no amount of fear was going to make him into someone else's property. Years later, in an interview that circulated mostly in Cantonese language media, Jackie was asked about that period. The interviewer expected a dramatic retelling, big emotions, maybe some revisionist heroism. Instead, Jackie got quiet. He rubbed his knuckles, the way fighters do when they're remembering old impacts. And he said simply, "I wasn't brave. I was stubborn. There's a difference. Brave people don't feel the fear. Stubborn people feel it and do the thing anyway, because they're too hard-headed to let someone else write their story." That's the line that stayed with me. Too hard-headed to let someone else write your story. Because that's what the triads wanted to do. Not just cast him in a movie. They wanted to write his story. They wanted to decide what Jackie Chan did, where he went, who he worked for. They wanted to turn the most dynamic performer of his generation into a puppet. And Jackie, 5'8", cracked ribs, standing on a red carpet in dress shoes, did a backflip and told the entire criminal underworld of Hong Kong that he was the author of his own life. Mars, his stunt coordinator, gave an interview in 2003 where he talked about the day on set when Jackie admitted he was scared. Mars said, "Everyone thinks Jackie is fearless because of the stunts, but I've seen him afraid. I was there. What makes him different isn't that he doesn't feel fear. It's that fear has never once made his decisions for him. Not on a rooftop, not in a parking garage, not ever." The triad boss lived another 12 years. His organization eventually fractured, weakened by law enforcement pressure and internal disputes. The film industry he once manipulated evolved beyond his grip. The lieutenant from the parking garage reportedly left the organization in the early 90s and opened a restaurant in Tsim Sha Tsui. Whether he ever watched another Jackie Chan movie is unknown. Jackie kept making films, kept breaking bones, kept getting up. He broke his nose 3 times, his ankle twice, his fingers more times than he could count. He cracked his skull during Armor of God and nearly died. Every injury was voluntary, every risk was chosen. And that's the distinction that matters. Because here's what the triads never understood about Jackie Chan. You can't threaten a man's legs when that man has already risked his legs 1,000 times by choice. Jackie threw himself off buildings for a living. He fought 12 guys at once with a chair. He jumped from a highway overpass onto the top of a moving bus. Every single day on set was a negotiation with gravity and survival, and Jackie always signed on the dotted line. So when a man in a silk suit says, "We'll break your legs," Jackie's internal calculation was different from what the triads expected. They expected terror. What they got was a guy who thought, "I've almost broken my own legs 100 times. You think your threat scares me more than a 4-story fall? You think your goons are more dangerous than a missed wire rig at 40 miles per hour? You don't know what I do for a living." That's the miscalculation that saved Jackie Chan. The triads applied a formula that worked on everyone else. Fear plus force equals compliance. But Jackie's relationship with physical danger was fundamentally different from a normal person's. He'd rewired his own fear response through decades of stunts. He could feel terrified and still move. He could acknowledge the danger and still show up. He could be kicked in the ribs in a parking garage and still stand on a red carpet 5 days later doing a backflip. And there it is, the legend. Not a myth, not an exaggeration. A true story about a man who was told to kneel and chose to flip instead. Jackie Chan, the man the Mafia tried to break, the man who showed up anyway, the man who did his own stunts on camera and off, in the movies and in life, the man who was too stubborn, too hard-headed, too fundamentally Jackie Chan to let anyone else decide what happened next. They tried to break his legs before the final act. His reaction shocked everyone, not because he fought back with fists, but because he fought back by simply refusing to stop being himself. He walked toward the danger, he spoke the truth out loud, he showed up on the night they told him not to, and he landed the backflip. That's not a movie, that's a man. And that's why, 4 decades later, when people talk about Jackie Chan, the conversation always comes back to the same place. Not the stunts, not the comedy, not the box office numbers. It comes back to a parking garage in Kowloon, a bruise under a shirt, a press conference that broke silence, and a red carpet backflip that told the most powerful criminal organization in Hong Kong that Jackie Chan answered to exactly one person,